I just settled into my seat on Flight 2273 from Phoenix, ready for a quiet trip home, when a commotion erupted in first class. A woman with a flawless brunette bob and designer sunglasses perched on her head shot to her feet, her voice slicing through the hum of pre-flight chatter. "Everyone needs to get off this plane right now," she bellowed. "This aircraft is not safe to fly." The cabin froze. Heads turned, eyes widened, and a few passengers fumbled with their seat belts, unsure if this was a real emergency. I leaned forward, trying to catch a glimpse of the chaos unfolding a few rows ahead. The woman, who I instantly recognized as Deborah Hensley, president of my neighborhood's Crest VY EW Meadows Homeowners Association, stood defiantly in the aisle, arms crossed, blocking the flight attendants. Back home, she'd been a thorn in my side since I moved in 6 months ago, issuing citations for everything from a slightly tilted mailbox to a trash can left out an hour past pickup. Now, here she was, turning a routine flight into her personal battleground. I'd seen her strutting around the National Association of Homeowners Conference in Phoenix all weekend, where I'd been sent to cover it for our local paper. She'd interrupted speakers with smug corrections and handed out business cards proclaiming, "Deborah Hensley, President and Compliance Officer, Crest VY EW Meadows HOA." And now, she was pointing dramatically at her window, shouting, "Look at this. There's a crack in the window frame. This plane could decompress mid-flight." From my seat, I could barely make out a faint line in the plastic panel around the window, not even the glass itself, just the decorative trim. It looked like nothing more than a cosmetic scratch. A flight attendant, who'd introduced herself earlier as Sarah, approached with the patience of a saint. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. We're about to begin takeoff procedures," she said calmly. Deborah scoffed, her voice dripping with condescension. "Absolutely not. I refuse to sit in an unsafe plane, and I won't let anyone else risk their lives either." What started as confusion was spiraling into panic. A couple with a baby looked visibly shaken, the mother clutching her child tighter. An older man near me gripped his armrests, his knuckles white. Phones were out, cameras rolling, ready to capture whatever drama was about to unfold. Sarah tried again, her tone steady. "Ma'am, I assure you, that's just a surface mark in the interior panel. It doesn't affect the window or the plane's safety." Deborah rolled her eyes. "I've been on planes before, young lady. I know what safety looks like. This is a clear violation of FAA regulations." She raised her voice louder, drawing more stares. "This plane needs to be grounded for a full inspection. If you looked hard enough, you'd find dozens of other safety violations your airline's trying to hide." By now, other flight attendants had gathered, and the captain emerged from the cockpit, his presence commanding attention. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rippling through the cabin. A businessman across the aisle muttered under his breath, rolling his eyes so hard I thought they'd pop out. As someone who oversees a board of directors, Deborah continued, as if her HOA role made her an aviation expert, "I understand liability. I'll make sure this airline is held accountable if you take off with this defect." Sarah, still composed, tried a different tack. "Ma'am, would you like me to call a maintenance crew to inspect the window and explain the safety features?" Deborah's face lit up with a smug grin. Yes, finally someone with sense. But when Sarah reached for the cabin phone, Deborah grabbed her arm. "Not until we evacuate everyone first. I won't have people sitting here in danger." Gasps echoed around me. She just crossed the line, and the tension in the cabin thickened like a storm cloud ready to burst. The situation was unraveling fast. Deborah paced the first-class aisle, pointing at random cabin featureisa scuff on a seat, a loose tray table, and declaring them suspicious or poorly maintained. She delayed our departure by at least 15 minutes, and passengers were losing patience. A maintenance technician arrived, a seasoned guy with weathered hands that screamed decades of experience. He examined the so-called crack and explained, polite as could be, that it was just a seam in the plastic panel, completely normal and unrelated to the actual window, which was secure. Deborah wasn't ha-vying it. "Sir, with all due respect, you're not being honest," she snapped, her voice oozing arrogance. I've documented this violation with photos, and I've been timing how long it's taken you to address this. This will all be evidente in my FAA complaint. The captain, a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair and a calm that could soothe a hurricane, stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm Captain Thompson. I've flown this aircraft type for over 20 years. I can personally guarantee that feature poses no safety risk. Deborah faltered for a split second, but her defiance roared back. Well, Captain, I hope you're ready to put that in writing, because when this plane has an incident, I want everyone to know who said it was safe. The captain's expression didn't waver. Ma'am, you have two options. Return to your seat, and we'll proceed with departure. Or, if you can't accept our safety assurances, we'll arrange for you to take a later flight. But your VY or is now causing a significant delay, which violates federal aviation regulations. Deborah's face flushed crimson. Are you threatening me? I'm the one protecting everyone here. I demand this plane return to the gate so I can speak to your super VY soar. I want the names of everyone involved for my lawsuit. The captain's eyes hardened, though his voice stayed even. I'm not threatening you, ma'am. I'm explaining the situation. Your actions are interfering with flight operations, which is a federal offense. Sensing she was losing her grip, Deborah doubled down, like a cornered animal lashing out. I'm not MOVYing until this airline issues a formal statement admitting this safety defect and explaining why they try to cover it up. Everyone deserves to know what kind of company they're trusting with their lives. By now, nearly 30 minutes had passed. The baby, who'd been napping earlier, was wailing, its cries piercing the cabin. Business travelers were making frantic calls about misconnections, their voices sharp with frustration. The mood had shifted from confusion to outright hostility toward Deborah. Look what you've done, she snapped, gesturing at the crying baby. This poor child is distressed by the unsafe conditions you're all ignoring. That was the breaking point. A wave of groans swept through the cabin. Someone from the back yelled, "The baby's crying because you won't shut up and let us take off." The comment sparked applause and a few cheers, the cabin uniting against her. Deborah looked stunned, as if she'd expected everyone to rally behind her self-proclaimed heroism. Captain Thompson spoke quietly into his radio, and within minutes, the cabin door swung open. 2 airport security officers stepped aboard, followed by an airline manager with a badge that screamed authority. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Martinez with airport security," the taller one said. Deborah launched into a tirade, pointing at the window and talking over the officers every time they tried to speak. The airline manager cut in, his voice firm. "Ma'am, our maintenance team has certified this aircraft as safe. The issue you've raised is a cosmetic feature that poses no risk." Deborah's voice hit a new pitch. "This is ridiculous. I'll be contacting my attorney the moment we land. Everyone here is a witness to how I'm being treated for raising legitimate safety concerns." Officer Martinez's tone hardened. "Ma'am, you have 2 options. Retake your seat and comply with crew instructions, or you'll be removed from the aircraft. This is your final warning." Deborah drew herself up, her eyes blazing. "I am Deborah Hensley, president of Crest VY EW Meadows Homeowners Association. I oversee a community of over 200 homes and manage a budget of $500,000. I know my rights, and I know when officials are abusing their power." The younger officer stifled a smirk. "Ma'am, your HOA position doesn't grant you authority here." Deborah whipped out her phone. "That's it. I'm calling 911. This is false imprisonment." Officer Martinez nodded to his partner. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for disorderly conduct and interfering with aircraft operations under Title 49 of the United States Code." As he recited her Miranda rights, his partner cuffed her gently but firmly. "You can't be serious." Deborah shrieked, her voice cracking. "I'll have your badges for this. This is police brutality." The officers escorted her off the plane, and the cabin erupted in spontaneous applause. Someone shouted, "Thanks for SAVYing us from the real threat," and laughter rippled through the rows. Once Deborah was gone, Captain Thompson addressed us. "Folks, I'm sorry for the delay. We'll be departing shortly. Sometimes, our job involves tough calls to ensure everyone's safety and comfort. 45 minutes late, we finally took off. I spent the flight mentally drafting an article, not the HOA conference piece my editor wanted, but a juicier story about Deborah's meltdown. 3 days later, the incident was everywhere. Passenger VY Deos went VY Rao, with headlines screaming, "Airborne HOA Tyrant Grounds Flight Over Fake Crack." The airline confirmed the crack was a harmless seam in the panel, no threat to safety. The fallout hit Deborah hard. She was charged with interfering with the flight crew, a federal offense that could have meant 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Her attorney swung a plea deal, but she still faced a DULA $10,000 fine and a year of probation. Back home, the Crest VY EW Meadows HOA held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to boot her as president. When they told her, her face turned a shade of red I didn't know was humanly possible, and she ranted about betrayal and conspiracies. The neighborhood and the internet had a field day. Deborah's reign of terror, both in Crest VY EW Meadows and on Flight 2273, was over, but the story of her epic meltdown? That's one for the ages.